what we're going to do is take notes, just brief notes you should have read last week in chapter 9. Okay, so this should be a review over some simple vocabulary that is really going to set us up for the rest of the unit. Okay, so you read about states and nations and all of that in chapter 9, and so I'm going to give you like brief definitions. We're going to draw an image to go with it, and then we're also going to do some like Wakeland examples to kind of make it more personal and kind of drop it to like a smaller scale for us to be able to relate to these terms and like truly understand what they mean. Okay, so you're going to write down what I write down, and this will be part of what goes on your Padlet for today. Okay, so the first word that we're going to do is state. So write state, capital S, underline it or circle the S so that you know it is a capital S. Whenever I talk about state for this unit, I'm really talking about a country. Okay, so a state is going to equal a country. Really all it is just land, right? We're talking about a specific piece of land that is governed by laws. It also has to be recognized by the international community. Right, so other countries have to say that you're a country for you to really be a country. You could be on an island and wave your flag and say, hey, I'm a new country. But if other countries don't agree or recognize you as an independent country, then you really don't have any validity in your claim to being like a real country, right? So other countries have to recognize that you're an independent country, okay? And you have to be governed by laws, obviously, right? So the difference here is that you probably think of states as the states that we live in, right? Here in the U.S. We live in Texas, or you drive to Oklahoma or to Louisiana, or Alaska as a state, right? But whenever we talk about state throughout this unit, the rest of the world recognizes a state as a country, okay? So whenever I say state, I'm not talking about Texas or Oklahoma, I'm talking about a country, all right? So remember, you guys all chose countries last week to focus on. You guys will have, like, whenever I call it a state, what are these boys doing out there? Do you see them? Causing distraction. Anyways, so whenever we talk about countries, I'm going to say state, all right? So later on, you'll be working on research for your own state, aka country, okay? Pretty simple. The next term, oh wait, we have to draw our picture. So with state, we're just going to draw a square. That's going to represent our country or our land, okay? And our Wakeland example is going to be over on the right side. So our Wakeland example for our land, for our country, is going to be the Wakeland campus, okay? All right, next term. By the way, I didn't tell you this, we're writing down 9 terms, okay? So if you need to like erase off of your desk at some point to make more room or go to a different desk, that's fine. But you will need to take a picture of all this whenever you're done, okay? I didn't tell that to my last class and then they freaked out on me. Okay, so we're gonna have 9 terms. All right, so we have 8 more. Second one is going to be nation. So a nation is really just a group of people and they're connected like ethnically, culturally, or linguistically. All right, so think back to Unit 3 before the break, and we looked at religions and languages and culture, right? So people who share a same sort of like background and ancestry and religion, who are from like the same general area, and they share that ancestry and the background, the history of their people. That's really what's going to unite people and to be a nation. Okay, sometimes the media and the news and just the population in general will confuse nation, state, and country, all three of those words, to mean the same thing, and they're not. They're very different. Okay, state and country are the same thing, but nation is really referring to a group of people. Okay, so for our image over on the left side, we're going to draw stick figures. Okay, these are our people that are all related. Okay, and I'm going to draw mine with red hair so that we know they're their own group of people. Okay, so to our Wakeland example, this is going to be you guys, the students. It's going to be the student body, okay, in our Wakeland example over here. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 is a nation state. So we're combining the two, really, right? Nation state, capital S, so that you know that it is a country, right? Okay, what is a nation state going to be? We know what a nation is and we know what a state is. So what is a nation state? I'm not talking to myself. I'm asking you a question. What is a nation state? This is a really easy one. So what's the definition of a nation? A group of people. And what is a state? A land or a country. So what is a nation state? Good job. Okay, so one group of people living on a particular piece of land, right? On a country, in a country. Okay? What, Caitlin?
How is that not a state? Because don't people live in a state?
Yep, but we're going to keep going with our vocab words, and we're going to see how there can be other nations living on a state. Okay? But right now, a nation state is talking about one group of people. Write it down. One group of people on land, with land, right? So a specific group of people with their own land, okay? There was a really good example. Actually, there's 2 that I can think of that came out of the book from chapter 9. What was it? Real life examples of nation states. What was it, McKenna? Japan. Yes, the Japanese, that's the nation, right? The Japanese. Living in Japan. Japan is the state. Japanese are the nation, the people, okay? So the Japanese share same cultural background, heritage, ancestry, language, religion for the most part, okay? They are very culturally alike, okay? And in the book, I think it says that something like 97% Japanese people live on the island of Japan, okay? So it is really hard for someone to immigrate to Japan. They have a really strict immigration laws, and you can't really get a visa there for like long term. If you get a visa, it's like you can work there for X amount of years, like Americans. You can work there for X amount of years, but then eventually you got to get off. You got to get off our island. You got to go back to where we came from, because they have a very strong cultural ties just to their heritage, and they're a very strong, tight-knit group of people, okay? A nation. They are a true nation that identifies very strongly with being Japanese, okay? And so because of that, they want to keep their island mostly Japanese, okay? So they, again, that 2-3%, whatever it is, those people aren't probably going to stay there for very long. It's the closest thing to a full nation state that we have today, okay? Another example that they talked about in the book was Iceland. I think it's however you call them, Icelandic people living in Iceland. Okay, that was another example that they gave you from the book. Okay, mostly Icelandic people living in Iceland. Okay, these are mostly nation states with most of the same types of people living in that one country, living in that one state. Okay, does that make sense? All right, our image that we're going to draw over on the left side is our red-headed purple people within the land, okay? So we're truly just combining what we did at the top for the first two, okay? Because that's all it is. Throw red hair in a land, okay? In their own country. So what would our Wakeland example be with this? Well, Wakeland. Let's think specifically. You're not necessarily wrong, okay? But think about with what we just talked about. Look, we have our nation, we have our state, right? So what is the nation state going to be, Caitlin? And so that would be the state. What's the nation part to it? What's the nation state part? The students in it, right? So it'd be the students at Wakeland. So you guys are here in class right now at the building. So you're the nation state, right? Right now we are in our nation state. We are the Wakeland students at the Wakeland campus. So we are a nation state, okay? All right, the next term that we have, number 4, is going to be a stateless nation. What is a stateless nation going to be? Kaylin?
Is that like the Kurds?
That's going to be a real life example, but tell me what the definition is.
Like a group of people, but they don't actually have like an actual place, like a designated like country area.
Right. Okay. We know what state is and we know what nation is. So a stateless nation is going to be a group of people that don't have their own state, right? They don't have their own country. So write it down. It's a group of people without land, but they want their land, but they just don't have it yet. Okay, so Caitlin said the really good example used from the book and from that video the other day, right, that you were supposed to have watched for the IBOC party, right? He talked a lot about Kurdistan, the Kurds, right? So the Kurds are a group of people who live in the Middle East. They heavily identify with being Kurdish, but they don't have their own country. Parag, the guy that you watch in the TED Talk, he talked about Kurdistan. Kurdistan is not a real country because other countries don't recognize it as a real country. That's kind of confusing. Basically, Kurdistan isn't a real country, okay? But the Kurds who live there, they're still a group of people, okay? But they're just through several different countries, okay? They wish that they had their own country. So they are a stateless nation. They are a group of people without their own country, without their own state, okay? So our little image over here is going to be our people again because they're a nation. Yikes, it gets worse and worse every time I draw it. Oh no, what is that? No, that's what I want. What the heck? Here we go. And our people are dreaming of their own land, right? They wish they had their own land. Our Wakeland example since you guys are freshmen, you don't know this yet, but it's okay. You will one day. When you get older, there are more specific classes, either AP classes or dual credit classes that sometimes are not offered over at like Frisco High because they're a much smaller school than we are. They have way less students. They have less teachers over there. So because of that, they don't offer the same classes. So instead of like withholding those classes to those Frisco students, they just put them on a bus and put them over here and let those Frisco students come to Wakeland for second period or third period or whenever the class is. So that way they can take that class and get that credit, okay? So with that, Frisco is its own nation state across town, right? Every high school would be its own nation state. So Frisco is its own nation state. So whenever those kids come here, when those students come to Wakeland, they're their own nation, but now they're without a state because they're not in their state anymore. They're not in their high school, right? So the example would be the Frisco student here at Wakeland, just for that period or so whenever they're over here, okay? So Frisco student at Wakeland. Okay, does that make sense? Because they're their own nation, but now they're in a different place. They're without their state, their specific state, okay? All right, next one. Multinational state. That's what we're writing. So what would a multinational state be? If we know what state is and we know what nation is, I know you know what multi is, what would a multinational state be, Carly? Yeah, a state with multiple nations. So many nations, right? That's what multi means. Many groups of people. In one country. Right? So many groups in one state. What would some real life examples be? Yeah, the U.S., right? Sitting right here in this classroom. We're a perfect example of how this country is a multinational state, right? We come from different backgrounds and religions and ethnicities, right? So U.S. is a great example. What are some other melting pot countries? Canada. What's that really big country that we wrote that we drew on our sketch map? Huh? Russia, right? So before it was Russia, it was the USSR, right? The Soviet Union. And remember, we drew all of the stands. I kind of explained that to you, that the stands used to be a part of the Soviet Union, but they all broke apart because they were all different types of people, right? Same thing with Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the Eastern European countries, right? They were all different ethnically, and they all broke up and became their own countries. Today, it's still like that. Think about how big Russia is. Of course, they're not all ethnically Russian, okay? They have a lot of different pockets of people who still live within Russia, and there's still conflict there because there's still groups of people who want to have their own country. They want to pull away from Russia. So, in a sense, they're like stateless nations themselves because they ethnically identify more with their group of people than they do with Russia as a whole, okay? So that's why Russia is a multinational state, because they have many nations in their own country, okay? So with our image over here, I'm going to draw my stick figures again, but I'm going to draw them a little differently to show that they're all different. So one of them will have a red hair still. One of them is going to have blue long hair. One of them is going to have a green dress and a matching hat. Okay, so they're all different people, but they're all living in the same state, right? In the same country. Okay? So back to our Wakeland example, what is a place? Where is a place where there are many nations in one place or one building? What? Yeah, the Kate Center, right? CTE. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the Kate Center. Is the Kate Center and CTE Center different? Is it the same thing? Do you know?
It's the same thing.
Okay, great. Okay, so think about it. You have all of these different nationalities, these different nations, aka the different high schools, right? Because if every high school is its own nation state, you have the nations of Wakeland coming together, the nations of Liberty and of Reedy and of Heritage and Independence and all of those different nations, but now they're in one building, aka one state of the CTE Center, right? So that would be a multinational state when you have all these different nations together, okay? Sarah, I'll post this video so you can finish. Does that make sense? Do you see that? All right. Okay, next one is opposite. It is a multi-state nation now. So what would a multi-state nation be?
A lot of states in one nation.
Reverse that.
A lot of nations in one state.
No, Carly, like your wording of it was off.
People in the same nation in many states.
Yeah, so it's one group of people, right, spread out across many states. Okay, so it's the same group, one group of people. Spread across many states. So sometimes they want to take land and make it their own. What's a good example of this that we've talked about?
UK. Or
That's a state. Think about it. It's one nation across many states.
South America.
That's a continent. What is one nation? Why are you guys giving me places? One nation, a group of people. Caitlin, what is it?
Maybe Russia. It's like
The Kurds. The Kurds, right? The Kurds share a cultural identity together, and they're across several different states, right? So the Kurds, right? Look, I'll show you guys. Let's Google it. Where is Kurdistan? Look at this map. Right here. Oh, what'd I do? Okay, you see it? All of that brownish area, that's the Kurds, right? They identify together. They identify with more of being a Kurd than they do of living in Turkey or of being a Syrian citizen or being an Iraqi citizen. They believe they identify more with being Kurdish, okay? So this whole tan area, that's not a real country, right? But they're still a nation. It's one nation, but now they're split across Syria, Iraq, Iran, Armenia, Turkey. Okay, that's like 5 different countries, right? 5 different states. So multi-states, but with one nation. It's one group of people spread out across it. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so back to our drawing, our image over here. We're gonna have our people, our nation, right? Their red hair again. So here's our nation, here's our Kurds. And now they're in several states. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw a box through there. So now there's 4 different states, but the people are spread across all of them now. Okay? So our Wakeland example, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but go with me here, okay? So think about how we're looking for one nation. Our nation is Wakeland students, right? That's our nation, okay? But to be multi-states, to be across several campuses, how would Wakeland Wolverines be across several campuses, Caitlin?
Well, could it be the Frisco thing, but like they're at their own place? Oh, I guess they have their own.
Yeah, they have their own. Think about how Wakeland students are spread across multiple campuses. Might be a little bit of a stretch, but where'd you go to middle school last year? Griffin or Cobb, right? So Griffin and Cobb kids are going to be feeders into Wakeland, right? So even though you hadn't been to Wakeland yet, you were zoned for Wakeland, right? So you're going to be a Wakeland student. So essentially you're a Wakeland student at Cobb or at Griffin, right? And if you break it down even further, think about all the elementary schools that have future Wolverines walking their halls right now, right? In kindergarten, first grade. So kindergarten through 8th grade, they're Wakeland students, they're just not here yet, right? So it's a little bit of a stretch, but think about it. It's feeder patterns, right? They're separated across several states because those other campuses would be like other states, but we're all still the same nation because one day they're still considered like Wolverines, you know? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what were some of our feeder patterns that we can write down? Where'd you go to school, McKenna? Pink, and then you fed into... What? Griffin? Okay. So Pink to Griffin. You can write whatever your pattern was if you want. If you moved in, you can do what I'm doing. Okay. So Pink Elementary fed into Griffin and fed into Wakeland. All right. So that would be different states, but still the same nation.
Or it can't be that because technically Lakeland is where, you know what I'm saying? Okay,
No. Someone said earlier alumni. Alumni could kind of be included in that too, right? Think about all the seniors who graduated last year who are now at different college campuses. They're still technically Wolverines, right? They always will be at heart because they graduated, they have a diploma from Wakeland High School, right? And now they're spread out across different college campuses, right? Some are at UT, some are at A&M, some are at OU, some are at OSU, right? They're all spread out, but they still have the same, they're still Wakeland Wolverines, you know? Is that a better example? Should I use that in the future instead?
No, I was just
We're your last class.
Yeah, you are, but I'll teach it for 100 more years, right? Let's hope.
Yep.
Okay. Did you take a picture of that before you erased it, Nolan?
Yes.
Okay, good idea. Okay, we have 3 more terms left. 3 more terms. They're not quite like this. They're a little bit different, but they all go together. Nationalism. That's where we're going next. Nationalism. What is nationalism? It's nationalism. I know you know what nationalism is. Someone besides Carly and Caitlin, I want to hear your voices today. Grace, what is nationalism to you? Yeah, you do. What would nationalism be?
Your race.
No. Think about nationalism. U.S. nationalism. What would U.S. nationalism look like? What's the definition of it? Haley, what's nationalism?
Having pride in your own country.
Yeah, exactly. Pride. Right? It's extreme pride. Liv said earlier, patriotism. Right? So it's extreme pride either in your country or in your group of people even, right? So it could be pride in your nation or pride in your state, okay? But it's extreme pride one way or the other, right? What would examples be for U.S. nationalism? Yeah, we have holidays, right? July 4th. What else? Yeah, like the flag, right?
Like taking off days of like work to honor like our independence and stuff like that.
Okay, so besides July 4th, also maybe Memorial Day, right? Labor Day, yeah, okay. Okay, so our image then is just going to be the flag. In our Wakeland example, what's an example of Wakeland nationalism, Carly?
Like white and shirt.
Yeah, like orange and navy, right? Like you wear school things, right? So navy and orange. What else?
I was gonna say alma mater.
Yeah, the alma mater. Oh my gosh, I cannot spell today. What else? What do we have coming up in a few weeks, on a few Fridays? Is it next Friday or Friday after? What's another example of Wakeland nationalism? What was it, Grace? Pep rally, right? We might even go to games, right? You band kids, you go to games, right? Play in the band. You might go to games. You might play in the games too, right? All right. So that would be examples of Wakeland nationalism, right? All right, the last two go together. Centripetal and centrifugal forces. I think those in chapter 9, right? Centripetal first. CENTRIPETAL. A centripetal force. Gonna underline the P because it is mostly a positive thing, right? It's going to be something that unites people. All right, our image, I'm going to draw some arrows going to each other. All right, it's going to be something that pushes people towards each other or unifies them, right? So it's going to bring people together. So nationalism can be an example of uniting people, right? I know you guys weren't alive, but during 9/11, 9/11 really brought Americans together. There was this sense of nationalism because everybody was really proud to be an American. We just went through this horrible thing that wrecked a lot of families, right? Thousands of people were killed. That was not fair. We were blindsided, right? If you didn't know someone who was affected by it, you knew someone who did know someone, right? Just about, that's how it was. And we really came together. And we were unified as being really strong Americans, okay, during that time. The Olympics is another example, right? When the Olympics are on, we always root for the U.S., right? That's another example of a centripetal force, okay? It unifies us. It is some nationalism, right? But then on the flip side, we have a centrifugal force with an F. Underline the F. That's the big part here. So it's going to be something that divides people. Usually because of conflict, okay? So with our image here, we're going to draw our arrows going apart, but we're going to put the word fight in between because it usually involves some sort of fight or conflict that's going to push people apart. So an example of this, nationalism can also be a centrifugal force. It can be positive, but it can also be negative. It can be negative if we're thinking about our Kurdish example, right? those people identify with being more Kurdish than they do being Syrian or Iraqi or Iranian, right? They have citizenship in all of those countries, but they believe that they are more Kurdish. So their Kurdish nationalism feelings of being strongly Kurdish pulls away from the fact that they actually live in Syria and Iraq and Turkey and all of those countries, right? So because their nationalism pulls them apart from their actual like country, their citizenship, that would be a centrifugal force, okay? So nationalism can kind of go both ways, depends on where you're, like the context of it and where you're looking at it from, okay? Does that make sense? All right. Go ahead and before I have you take pictures of it, I want to explain how this is going to work. That way the people who are listening to this can hear me explain this, okay? So with these 9 terms that we just did, you are about to go over these 9 terms with your specific country, okay? So on Classroom, I posted the list of all 9 of these terms. Here in just a second, I'll go over with you my country. My country is Israel. You need to be familiar with Israel. It's a country you're expected to know for the exam, so that's why I'm going to do it because it's pretty important. It's kind of confusing. So I'm going to go over Israel and show you how I want you to do it on your Padlet with your country. But basically, you're going to go through all 9 of these terms that we just took notes over, okay? And you're going to look at all of these different terms for your country, okay? So the state of your country is really just the borders, right? The state of my country is Israel. It's going to be the borders of your country. That's going to be your state. And then you're going to look at the nations, okay? So all of it is posted on Classroom. If you need to go look at my example, go look at my Padlet, and that's what I'm about to show you guys right now, okay?